Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Local Leaders, the podcast. And we are in a part 3 with Jenny Fore, who is sitting across from me. She is a candidate for 21st Judicial District Juvenile Court Judge. That's a lot. And we're here today to talk about some things that we didn't go really into detail on the last podcast that we put out. And we're going to give you a little bit of information on that. But Jenny, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much. Like you said, my name is Jenny Richardson Fore, and I'm running for Juvenile Court Judge in the 21st JDC, and that's going to be the parishes of Livingston, Tangipahoa, and St. Helena.
There you go. And you got that out a lot better than I did just now.
I've been saying it for a long time now.
That's right. And you mentioned that, of course, you are in the runoff now for this election.
And I want to thank everybody for going out and voting for me. And I will love for you to go out one more time and vote for me one more time so we can get this done.
That's right. And so before we go any further, let's just mention that early voting is coming up.
It is. It's April 19th through the 26th. So it doesn't start this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. And Election Day is May 3rd.
May 3rd. And look, I usually vote on Election Day, or I always have. And the last podcast I did with Jenny Fore, she said, no, early vote because you never know what can happen. And she's right. And I did.
And how bad was the rain on March 29th? It was terrible. So,
it was terrible.
And we're getting into baseball season, crawfish boils, everything else, and there's just other stuff that people want to do. So you have a week to early vote, and I think that's just the best way to do it to make sure your vote's heard.
That's right. And look, we want the turnout to just keep going up and going up in the tri-parish area. So make sure you early vote, and you don't have to worry about just anything occurring, bad weather, what have you, on Election Day. So let's get into talking about some of the things that you deal with, that you're going to be dealing with. And the first subject I want to talk about is foster care, big subject in, I guess, your industry. So let's talk about that real quick. The last episode that we did, you had mentioned that there's kind of an issue with foster families relative to the amount of foster kids.
Yes. Well, we definitely have the biggest or the most kids in foster care in Livingston Parish, and even in our tri-parish area in the state.
Yeah.
So, and we have, I think, in Livingston Parish, the least number of foster homes.
Yeah.
So even if our children go into foster home, we want to keep them around because our main goal of foster care under the law is reunification. And if our kids aren't close to their bio parents, it's hard to keep that relationship alive. So. Yeah,
very good. And let me ask you a question. Of course, 10 plus years in the juvenile court system. And you've seen a lot of things. One question from someone who doesn't live that life is, what are you seeing as far as these children? Is it a younger generation of parents out there now versus what there used to be?
Yes, I mean, that's one of the things, but we have drug exposure to these children. There is no family unit anymore. So sometimes these parents weren't even taught to parent.
Yeah.
And so now we have grandparents raising children, and they're older and they shouldn't be running after kids either.
Right.
So, I mean, it's in systematic poverty. So, we have all kinds of issues. So I feel like sometimes when our families in foster care get back on their feet, then something happens, like the flood of 16 or Ida or something, and then they're back in the spot that they were before after all the hard work they put in.
Yeah. So, and as a juvenile court judge, what role would you play in that? So
we would have court hearings to determine if the parents are working their case plans in order to get their children back.
Right. So. Very good. Yeah. And that's the goal, right? Always.
Yeah. So under state law, the first goal is reunification.
Sure.
So, and that is not always the best goal. And sometimes when these kids keep coming back into the system, DCFS can decide not to work a case plan with these parents and go straight to termination.
Yeah.
Or if it's sexual abuse, or if it's something that has to do with a felony and these parents could be in jail for years and years and years. We need to have stability for these children. So in some circumstances, DCFS can go straight to termination. But the main goal, the first goal, would be reunification for these children.
Very good. And stability, very important.
We have to have stability. So if reunification is not working and they're not working their case plan, then the goal gets changed to adoption, guardianship, different custody of a grandparent to a grandparent. So there's other options.
Let's talk about truancy real quick. Obviously, one of the glaring issues, not only in this tri-parish area where you're involved, but also throughout the state.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an issue. You're a big believer, and I'm also a big believer in that truancy creates another issue, which is crime.
Yes, and I have talked about that my whole time on the campaign trail. So we have first and second graders that are missing 30 and 40 days of school. If we see that, we know something is going on in that home, and we need to get into that home. Yeah. And we need to be proactive and not reactive, and I'll tell you why. If they are not reading, these children are not reading by the time they're in fourth grade, they're more than likely going to drop out of school. Yeah. Well, what happens when they drop out of school? They wind up in the system. And we only pay around $10,000 a year to educate our kids, but we're paying over $100,000 a year to incarcerate one child.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't make sense to me. No. So we need to put some of that money in on the front end and figure out why these children aren't going to school and get them in school so we are not paying for them for the rest of their lives.
In regards to truancy, so there's parents out there where, especially if you're a single parent, you're a single mother, maybe you've got to work, and you can't keep eyes on your kids 24/7. Do you take that into consideration? Is that something that you?
Yes, but at the end of the day, a child needs to go to school. So if we're talking about a parent or a kid that's in first and second grade, we know it's the parent's fault that they're not going to school.
Sure.
So that parent does need to be held accountable. And under our Family and Needs of Services statute, we can hold a parent accountable. And really, that probably needs to be looked into by the Department of Children and Family Services. Because like I said, it could be anything in that. Drugs can be in that home. The mom's not getting up to take these kids to school. Maybe she doesn't have a car to take these kids to school. She's not getting up to put them on the bus. It could be a number of things. But then if we're talking about a 15, 16-year-old that's not going to school, well, that's probably that child's fault.
Yeah, the parent probably thinks they're at
school. And sometimes these kids just don't want to get out of bed. Like we have the sheriff's department that goes and tries to get these children out of bed. So at that point, that child needs to be held accountable.
Yeah.
So we can put them on FENS probation. And if they're missing school, every day they miss of school, they can spend 7 days in the detention center, and that does happen.
And does the schools themselves communicate with?
Oh, yeah. So we work with Spencer Harris hand in hand. He is the truancy at central office.
Okay.
So, yes, I talk to him probably every other day because if I have a kid that is in our system, they have to have an educational plan. Yeah. That is one of the things that they have to have. So even in our drug courts, if they're in our drug court, they have to have the option of going to a public school, even if that's an alternative school.
Yeah.
So if they get kicked out while they're in drug court, that's a different story. But yes, so a lot of our kids, especially in Livingston Parish, would be in Pine Ridge, even if they're in our drug court.
Yeah.
So, and Spencer comes and staffs drug court with us once a week.
Okay.
So
well, shout out
I see him
Spencer.
once a week. Yes. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. So
very good.
He does what's best for the kids, for sure.
Yeah.
But he also has to see what's best for their school system.
Yeah.
So.
And it really is all about education. I mean, if they're not there, if they're not in school, they're going to lose opportunities later on.
Yep. And he's also been working with Jennifer Dewey at the Sheriff's Department. Yeah. I'm not sure of her title, captain. I don't know. She's high up. She's the head of the juvenile system at the Sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So they have been working together and going out to find these kids, knocking on doors to see why they're not in school. And then if they can't make contact with them, then it gets sent to our court system.
Oh,
so
wow.
They're doing some pre-stuff in Livingston Parish to get these children in school. And
Very
sometimes
good.
it just, a knock on the door is what it takes.
Yeah.
And that scares the parents enough to make sure that these kids are in school.
Yeah, because they know somebody's going to hold them accountable.
Exactly.
Very good. Let's talk about endorsements real quick.
Okay.
you've got some pretty good endorsements coming out of Livingston Parish. As a matter of fact, all 8 mayors.
All 8 mayors, or some of them are mayor-elects.
Yeah.
So we have that, all of that. We have the sheriff, the assessor, parish president, Representative Roger Wilder, and I also recently picked up the Tangipahoa Republican Parish Executive Committee endorsement.
Wow, very good. I want to talk next about mentorships.
Okay.
So the last episode that we did, we discussed the importance of trades and learning these trades. There's some great trade programs that high schools put out, welding programs, etc., that these kids can get involved in. Not everybody's, necessarily made for college. No. Some people don't want to go to it. They've had enough of school after high school.
All of these children don't fit in one box.
Yeah.
And not all of them need to go to college. Some of them need to go the trade route and are very successful doing the trade route, especially these days.
We talked a lot about that, but mentorships is something that's kind of dear to me as well. I, from experience, can tell you that when you meet a mentor early in life, someone you look up to, it makes a difference because you don't want to disappoint that person. We have some great programs in in Livingston Parish. I'm sure it's the same in Tangi, St. Helena, where we have JROTC programs.
Yes. Sergeant Gunny.
Yeah, Sergeant Gunny, amazing
walker,
individual.
And he's been doing great things. He's a good mentor. He's a good mentor for some of our drug court kids.
Yeah.
So, and I've talked about how when our kids are released from the secure facility, Florida parishes, a lot of them are 17 and they don't have a mentor. So we're putting them back in their same environment. So that was one of the things I wanted to focus on, to get these kids mentors to keep them on the right track until they can go get their TWIC card, until they can go offshore or in the plants. Because if they don't have somebody to look up to and keep them on the right track, they're going to go back and commit a crime. Well, and we have that youth challenge program for kids. And they
talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So some of the kids that are troubled, you can start the youth challenge program at 16 years old. So it falls under the National Guard. There's 3 different places that they have it, and they rotate. It's like a 4-month program. And so the first 2 weeks of this program, it's like boot camp, all the stuff. People hate it. But then once they get into it, they do really well. So if you make it the first 2 weeks, you'll be fine. Yeah. And so I think that there's 2 courses right now. You can get your high school diploma, or you can still get your high set there. But when you get out of there, there's also a mentor program connected to that.
That's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And so those kids, a lot of those kids that go there, just need structure. Just like
Amen.
our Pine Ridge.
Yes.
Our alternative school in Livingston Parish. I have kids that thrive in there because they have structure, because they're coming from a non-family unit. They may just have a mom who's working 3 or 4 jobs, or grandparents are raising them. They have no father figure. Yeah. So we need to get back to mentoring our children.
Yeah, and sometimes...
And structure.
Structure, huge thing. Yep. One of the most important things in life, and that's what you're going to get out of the military.
Phone is not raising our child.
No, not at all.
And that's what a lot of parents think these days. And some of these, like I said before, some of these parents weren't parented. Yeah. So they don't know how to parent.
I agree.
And I really do think our churches need to get involved too.
Yeah, so 100%.
Even with the foster care thing, we've been doing a big push around the state to get families in churches to sign up for foster care, because there's like 4,000 churches in the state of Louisiana.
If just one
adopted one child, there would be no children in foster care.
No children in foster care. And that's a big thing for you. Something that you can tell you hold that close to your heart and is important to you. Let's talk a little bit about things that you do outside of everything you do in the juvenile court system. So you belong to a lot lot of clubs.
I do. And my children belong to a lot of things as well. So I was team mom this year for my little girl's competitive cheer. She does Live Oak Rec. Yeah. And she's been doing that since she was 3 years old. So the last 3 years she's done that.
Yeah. Which means you do that.
Which basically. I do that. Yeah. And then both of them have been in competitive swim since they were 3. So as soon as cheer finished, I wanted to get her prepped for summer swim. Yeah. So she's been doing Tiger Aquatics at Pards. But so that's their schedule for the most part, and casted Kid Strong. But I am a member of Kiwanis Club, Pilot Club, Republican Women, the Liberty Bells. I think that's it.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
enough.
Yep.
That's a lot. So you give a lot outside
Yeah.
of yourself. That's
Yeah.
always a good thing. Let's get into acronyms. So
Okay.
we discussed on the last podcast. Look, the juvenile court system is the cat's meow of acronyms. Everything's an acronym, but there's one called QPI that kind of struck me. What is that? What does it stand for?
Quality
what does it do?
Parenting Initiative.
Yeah.
And it's something that DCFS tried to start rolling out between biological parents and foster parents. And it's where they work together for reunification.
Okay.
Because back to some of these bio parents do not know how to parent. So a foster parent can help them with that. There's all kinds of other stuff. Like sometimes they just need respite. They have zero help from family. They may not have family here. So it's them working together, and it's to just have them have a relationship together.
Yeah.
So for the goal of reunification.
That's it,
So,
which is a beautiful thing.
Yep.
What's something if you were when you are in your role as the juvenile court judge that you would maybe streamline, change, make better, something you've seen that you can contribute with changing?
So I know one thing that I hear a lot of times is, so I don't know, for each case that goes into juvenile court, it's confidential.
Yeah.
So we all have to go into court separate. We all put our names on the record, hear the case, and it goes back outside.
Yeah.
But all of these people are in a waiting room together. And sometimes that's not a good thing because there's victims with perpetrators in the
that's
same
awkward.
room.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the foster parents and the bio parents don't get along and they're all in the same room. And sometimes that's a good thing. But I think that we need to do better maybe scheduling these cases out at different times so people are showing up at different times. Also, like if we need a victim, just calling a victim to get there at that time and not have to sit there all day because they shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Or have a place for them to go.
Wow.
So,
very good.
yeah, I think that's something that we can work on for sure.
Is lock them up and throw away the key the answer?
No. So there will be some crimes that these children have to go, and under the law, they have to go, and it's lock them up.
Yeah.
But even if they're locked up, they still need resources because if not,
they're going to get out.
Yeah, they get out at some point.
Yeah.
So juvenile life is just until you're 21.
Yeah.
So you can only hold them so long. But if they don't have resources and stuff that they can do when they get out, they're going to be back in the same place, the state prisons. So then there's some things that we can't just lock them up for.
Right.
So there's crimes. We have something called a predispositional investigation. And it's our sentencing in juvenile court is called a disposition.
Yeah.
So OJJ, Office of Juvenile Justice, our probation, goes into a deep dive about everything that has happened into this case, and they do a recommendation. And we in juvenile court are supposed to go with the least restrictive means. So that usually is probation.
Right.
So under the law, we can't just lock up these kids.
Yeah.
So, yes. And then when they're on probation, there is numerous resources that we are giving them for them to stay out of trouble. So
it's huge. And you're going to get out someday. Juvenile life, y'all is only to your 21.
Yep.
So they're going to get out into society. If they don't have resources, they're going to go back.
And
to
if
the same
kids
thing.
are on probation, they are held accountable too. The Office of Juvenile Justice will file rules if they aren't abiding by the conditions of their probation. And so if they're on delinquency probation, for every rule the first time, for every time that they did something that they weren't supposed to do, they can spend 7 days in Florida parishes.
Yeah.
And so if another rule's filed, it goes to 10. And then a third rule's filed, it goes to 14.
Gotcha.
So
You've had 250 plus cases last year that you dealt with. The question here is, what would you do in a case where a juvenile that maybe you represented in the past appears before you as a judge?
So I have to recuse myself. I won't hear those anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
So all of those cases, I will not be able to hear.
And is that your option, or is that like
No, through
the
the Supreme Court.
I got
Yep.
you. Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
So
One last question for
Okay.
you. So in the March 23rd election, you garnered 52% of the vote in Livingston Parish, 35% of the vote in Tangi, and 24% of the vote in St. Helena. The third person in this race, Rebecca Davis Lee, garnered 8,727 votes, which are now up for grabs, essentially, assuming the same people vote in the runoff the way they did the first time. What would you say to the supporters that supported Rebecca Davis Lee? What would you say to them as to why they should vote for you?
Well, I am the best candidate and most qualified candidate by far. So I am the only candidate that works and represents juveniles. My opponent represents their parents in DCFS cases. I have, I think, taken over 2,000 delinquency cases over the last 10 years, 1,500 of them being detention cases. She does not have those numbers. I am the only candidate that works with the school system on the regular basis. She does not. I'm the only candidate to staff drug court weekly. She does not. So there's a lot of a difference between us.
Yeah, so, I would say so. And if experience is something you seek, it's going to be hard to beat Jenny Fore's experience.
I'm the only one that works with these governmental agencies that we have on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. Not just the school. I'm talking about the Office of Juvenile Justice, our FINS program, our truancy court. I'm the only one that works with Florida Parish's Juvenile Detention Center on a weekly basis.
What would you say to voters right now as an exit to leaving this podcast?
Ask them for their support and vote in the May 3rd election. And I would ask them to please go out and vote, and please bring their family and friends out to vote, because this is going to be a low voter turnout. So
one more time, the dates on the voting.
It is April 19th through the 26th. That's early voting. Election day is May 3rd. I'm number 5 on the ballot. High five for 4.
High five for 4. That's my favorite.
High five for 4. And yes, please go out. So Tangipahoa and St. Helena have nothing on the ballot except the Juvenile Judge's race. Livingston is going to have a tax renewal. I think that deals with the school board. And the town of Killian is going to have an alderman runoff. But other than that, that's it.
That's it.
So we have to get the people out to vote. And it's very important. This seat is very important. If we don't have the right person in there with the right experience, our children are going to suffer. So.
And I've been saying it since the beginning, in my opinion, one of the most important races of the year, if not the most.
This is our children's future.
It's our and us as adults.
Yes.
You know, it's our future too.
Yeah, because you could be a victim of juvenile crime as well.
That's right.
Or your grandparents could wind up in the system. I mean, grandchildren could wind up in the system. You just never know.
That's right.
So
that's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on 3 times.
Yes. Oh, I enjoy it every single time.
It is fun. For all of you out there, again, go vote. I'm going to put in the description of this podcast Jenny Fore's website, so you can learn more. If you'd like to learn more about this candidate, you can also go back and listen to prior episodes that she did with Local Leaders, a podcast. And until next time, I'm your host, Jim Chapman with Local Leaders, reminding you, love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you very much.